Good evening, everybody. Scott Baker here with another midweek devotional for you. I hope everybody out there is doing well. Tonight, I want to talk to you about people who are worthy of respect. Now, I'll tell you that I initially titled this devotional People Who Are Worthy of Imitation, but I decided that that might be kind of confusing since we are all, as God's followers, supposed to emulate Christ. So I decided instead to share with you a couple of people who you have probably heard of that I looked up to and who influenced me greatly in my spiritual walk and growth. In doing this, we're going to revisit one of my favorite books in the Bible, and if anybody knows me, they know that the book is the book of Proverbs. As I've said before, I'll say again, there is a world of knowledge in this book, and it is knowledge that the world needs right now. So the primary verse I want to look at is Proverbs 13:20, and it says, "He who walks with wise men will be wise, but the companion of fools will be destroyed." Pretty blatant imagery there. There's a companion verse that I want to use as well, and it's Proverbs 27:17, and it says, "As iron sharpens iron, so a man sharpens the countenance of his friend." Now, the first verse is pretty self-explanatory. When you hang out with wise people, people who do not succumb to evil, they in turn can help you develop wisdom. But when you hang out with people who are constantly trying to draw you into wickedness, you will probably eventually succumb and do something that you shouldn't do. The people you surround yourself with on a regular basis are a reflection of who you are as a person. The second verse reiterates that with some mental imagery. Now, the concept of iron sharpening iron can be confusing, but it's a metalworking reference that was used by smiths back in that time. The point of it is that things of a similar nature, regardless of whether that is iron tools or the people that you call friends, can help keep you fit and sharp of mind. Now, let me back up and say, I'm not saying that Christians should only hang out with Christians. I'm not saying that at all, because if that was the case, then we would never bring any lost souls into God's grace. What I am saying is that it's very important to surround yourself with friends and family that will help you grow. And by grow, I mean spiritually, mentally, and even physically. These all attribute to your well-being. God's people need to take care of themselves in all aspects so that we are constantly ready to grow His kingdom. To do so, we need to be able to rely on others to help boost us when we are down, to give us that adrenaline-like shot of spiritual resurgence when we need it. So let's take a look at a couple of people I considered very wise and helped keep me sharp. But first, let me give you a little backstory. So the other morning, I woke up about an hour and a half before my alarm was scheduled to go off, and I couldn't go back to sleep. Now, I usually have the alarm set for 6 a.m., which gives me plenty of time to get up, get ready for the day, and then spend some time with my wife before I head off to work. But with the way things have been in the world over the past few months, I've had trouble sleeping. So to help me get my Z's, I've been taking melatonin to help me fall asleep and stay asleep. Unfortunately, this time, I had forgotten to take it the night before, which is why my eyes blinked open at 4:26 a.m. in the morning. Now, let me tell you, I am not a morning person. In fact, there have been days when I have sworn that my blankets were trying to wrestle with me to keep me in bed. But on this morning, I was wide awake and definitely not heading back to sleep. I was not very happy about this, as I'm sure you can imagine, but I knew it was pointless to try, so I grumbled under my breath and I got up to face the day. Now, the house was quiet because everybody else was asleep. I didn't want to wake anybody up, so I decided to sit in my chair and scroll through headlines on my phone. Not a very glamorous way to spend an hour and a half, I assure you, and in fact, it's a little depressing. So I quickly decided to change course. So I closed my phone and I leaned back in my chair and thought about what else I could use this time for. a random thought occurred to me as I sat there in the dark. My memory pulled up, my mind pulled up a memory from several years ago. I was working for J.B. Hunt Transport back in 2006 when Mr. Hunt himself died. J.B., if you knew anything about him, had been a man of fierce faith, and he founded the company on Christian principles and ideals. I remember one of my first days of work walking into the building. If you look over to the right when you walk in the door, there are several biblical scriptures carved into the base of the building. And I remember thinking, man, that is really classy. That's something you don't see very often. But after his death, several people that were close to JB told stories about how every day, regardless of what was going on, he would get up an hour before everybody else to simply read the Bible and pray. And I remember thinking, when I heard that story, that is a man to emulate. That is a man to really be, to really fashion yourself after. I also remember hearing that his Bible was very dog-eared and torn, very worn, very dog-eared and worn. It was thoroughly used, and it was a testament to how much he used it. That really struck a chord with me. It's still one that rings with me today. But I also remembered a man, while I sat there in the dark, that I had contact with around that time who was also very spiritual. A couple of years after JB's death, I was privileged to meet another successful and prominent Christian businessman, Mr. S. Truett Cathy, the founder of Chick-fil-A. Mr. Cathy had come to Northwest Arkansas to speak with a Christian business association I was affiliated with called Work Matters. Now, my boss at the time was on the board of Work Matters, so he continuously got us tickets for events like this whenever they popped up. Like Mr. Hunt, Mr. Cathy was very devoted to Christ. He also made time every morning to read God's Word before he started his day. He said reading the Bible every morning helped give him the right mindset and the right outlook for the rest of the day. He also said that we live in a changing world, but we need to be reminded that the important things have not changed, and the important things will not change if we keep our priorities in proper order. Just think about that for a second. The man was very prolific. He was a very gifted speaker, and I was privileged because he retired from any kind of speaking engagements right after that. That was the last time that he ever gave a social engagement. So as these two memories rattled around in my head, I found myself smiling there in the dark. Both of these men helped define me in ways I didn't understand at the time, and both set the bar very high when it came to my spiritual goals. I'm still nowhere near the godly man that I should be, but thanks to the inspiration they provided me, I'm trying very hard to get there. And that's what this devotional is all about. There are good people in the world that should be looked up to. Too many times, we hold people in high esteem that should not be held that way. We need to find the goodness to look up to, the good people. They're out there. We just have to bring them forward. Thanks again, guys. This has been another midweek devotional. I hope it's inspired you. Everybody take care.